I'm gonna have to give that intro vanilla out of 10. Wait, we're not that part yet. Good evening, free enterprise runners. Welcome to Moleboy versus Kyrios in the blue and waxing bracket. We have Dathis on the restream, Chief Launcher in the tracking booth. I'm Estrin, and joining me in the comms booth today is JMac the Librarian. How are you doing today, JMac?
I am doing great. Apparently, we forgot that we do a 10-minute delay now, not a 15-minute delay, so it's fine. Everything is great.
We're getting underway here right away here with a Cecil start and JMac's favorite black mage, if not favorite character in all of the game, as our starting character, and our hook as the starting key item.
Oh, you know what? This is a zoom, vroom, vroom, we are ready to rock and roll seed. And we see, of course, both of our runners headed straight for Mysidia to get a glimpse at our next two characters.
That's a Young and a Palom as our next two characters. So a pretty mage-heavy party here with the Punch Mage in hand as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't really hate this party comp so far.
Yeah, it's certainly a group of characters that I'd be willing to take to the end game so far.
Oh yes, we do see both runners popping into a couple of shops, probably checking to make sure that there's nothing super necessary before heading out into the seed.
Yeah, well, one of the nice things about having as many mages as we do here and having Yang in hand is that we don't need heck of a lot of equipment in order to keep all of them in hand. Probably what we're going to be seeing in the early game, as is characteristic of the Moon flag sets, is some very early character checks. We can see Kyrios, for example, heading to Damsian. We'll need the hovercraft from here in order to get down the required hook route later on in the seed. There's also a character check here with a few characters. Moleboy, meanwhile, is heading up Mount Hobbs. There is a character check here as well. We'll see if Moleboy decides he wants to stick around and do any of the bosses here. This party's a bit weak to try taking the bosses right now, in my view, but it's still something that we could see.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we need somebody to help us clear these overworld spots. Edward, not necessarily who we're looking for.
I mean, we could still turn up an early spoon, and Edward might end up being at one of the powerhouses of the sea. We don't have that yet, of course, but it's certainly a possibility. That's Rosa in Damsian, so we're happy to have the white mage as well.
Yes, this is a great late game party. We are gonna see how our runners will do with getting this party up to some better standards than what they start with on Neki.
Yeah, like this is a group of characters that you're going to have some problems with the early game. Just we have mostly mages. We have Cecil, who is the Dark Knight right now. We'll need to get through ordeals before we start seeing real power. Kyrios is currently looting a few things in Watery Pass. This is where the last character check that we haven't seen yet is, and it is Edge.
There we are!
That makes us significantly happier. Moleboy, meanwhile, picks up the pass from Edward and Trya, which is that's a very good early game find.
Yeah, that's definitely something that you don't hate seeing from Bedward, just so you know that you have access to it, yeah. And that it's not hiding somewhere behind a dreaded moon boss.
Yeah, it's one less thing you have to worry about for the duration of the seed once you find it. You don't have to dive your way down the moon if you don't have to. Finding some nice equipment. That was a ninja sword that Moleboy found in the Troya basement. Once Moleboy picks up that edge, she's going to be very happy about it.
Yeah, so you know how we were just saying how we needed to find some equipment? Yeah, we're done. That edge and that ninja sword, like this overworld we're good to go now.
Oh yeah. In some cases in the moon flag sets, you might be motivated to go to, say, Evelyn Castle. I don't think we're likely to see that this time around, just with the quality of the equipment we've seen so far.
Probably not at first. I would probably say that both of our runners are going to dive into Evelyn before going down that hook route, though, because shiny swords make a difference in this flag set.
Ooh, and Moleboy finds Baigan, one of our required bosses, in Mist Cave.
Yeah, so this is an early spot with this equipment. However, it's a spot that we can get through even with these base levels, especially with that dancing dagger.
Yeah, this Baigan is not going to last very long. Ooh, Kyrios also picks up a Leviathan orb, so Rydia is going to be doing some work this seed.
I hope so. We don't have a Tella. So one of these characters is going to have to be an anchor at some point. But it looks like, at least on Moleboy's screen, we are using Edward as an anchor, which means I'm hoping Rydia's going to get some levels.
Give Rydia XP.
Yes. Because we love using Leviathan on the hook route.
Welcome to Rydia's car wash. Please enjoy your stay. Okay, Kyrios doing a bit of shopping in Trya. We did see some exits in the main shop here. Picking up some rune rings and bandanas as well. Going to be handy for defense. The bandanas are going to be nice for the strength boost, mainly. Yes. Is down on Moleboy's side. That is the first objective on the board, right about 6 minutes into the seed.
Yes, a good thing to go ahead and double check the Mist Cave. Just to get that out of the way. Also, on T Wildish, Mist loot is actually weighted quite high, considering there's only 4 chests. So we see Moleboy kind of coming in here, seeing if there's any tier 7s just kind of laying around.
No, that Siren will be nice if we don't find them later on, at the very least. Kyrios, meanwhile, is heading through Antline Cave, choosing to open a few chests here and there.
Yes, and I have a feeling that Moleboy is probably headed to Antline as well.
You might see a waterfall cave peak before we get all the way to Antline. Because this is Moleboy hasn't been to Watery Pass yet. So
that's true. First we need our edge, then we might be able to do waterfall.
Yeah, Kyrios approaching the boss of Antline Cave. It is Elements. Not one of our required bosses today, but you're glad to see this here rather than a more difficult spot later on. Oh no, poor Rydia.
She's trying so hard.
But yes, with Edge in the anchor spot here, and with that, especially with that ninja sword in hand, that was an Artemis spell on Rosa as well.
Yeah, it was just sitting in that chest right there in Watery Pass. Yeah, cool seed, thanks. Thanks a lot, Daphis.
That's a pink tail from Antline Cave. There are no adamant armors in this flag set, so this pink tail will just give a random high tier item instead. We'll see if Kyrios decides he wants to drop that off at some point.
I'd assume so, because while we love ninja swords, we love Muras and Massas even more.
Okay, Kyrios is indeed heading to Ordeals right now.
Yes, we do see that in the Blue Moon flags and the Red Moon flags too, that doing an early Ordeals dive has kind of turned into a meta because you get 3 checks out of the way. So as soon as you find some good loot, we see a lot of runners go ahead and head straight up here.
Yeah, the main point in my view is that you need to be powerful enough to actually survive the 3 bosses. But Edge, especially is with that ninja sword in hand, is more than up to the task in most cases. Actually, Edge in general is a fairly powerful character for taking on most of the overworld bosses.
Yeah, that is true. All you need is Edge and a decent sword, and you
Kyrios not even electing to save, just heading straight into the fight. That's a Lunar Sparkle.
Oh, who are we looking for with the Lunar Sparkle? Nobody today.
Nobody today. That's him.
But it is my favorite boss.
You're not going to make the noise, J-Mac?
I will on the second one.
Just once. As a treat for viewers.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, Moleboy peeked into Waterfall, as we thought he might, and found Valvalis there, not one of the bosses we're looking for, and especially not someone you want to deal with in that spot that early.
That's definitely not.
Yeah, that's the fastest, one of the fastest of the overworld bosses. Ooh, Moleboy going up Mount Hobbs, finds CPU sitting on top of Hobbs. CPU is one of the required bosses.
We love to see a required boss on Hobbs. We especially love it when we don't forget to fade it. Not that I have ever done that before this week.
I mean, considering what Moleboy's characters are named, must have been top of mind for them. Kyrios is through Pale Dave, is saving, or at the very least healing up this time, going back to the save point.
Yes, and we're about to see who our second boss is in that back attack spot. There are still, you know, quite a few bosses that I'm just
disappointed that this can't be Val now. That is, oh. Well,
Vanilla.
I think we know who rolled this
vanilla.
Yes, this is a vanilla Mylon Z in the back attack spot.
Yeah, it definitely can't be a Dathis rolled seed without some tasty, tasty vanilla.
No, I see. A splash of vanilla really brings out the flavor of the seed. It's just that some of us tended to overdo it every now and again. I mean, I've certainly been in that boat before.
But some of us really just love vanilla ice cream the best.
Of course. Okay, one of the interesting things I'm going to point out with the CPU fight ongoing, Blue Moon does have the back row glitch on. We're not in a state where any of these characters, except Rosa, I think, right now would be back road. I suppose Rydia might have, but since the CPU itself is in the back row, you're going to have some difficulty getting some damage out on it a lot of the time. In the Red Moon flagship, the back row glitch is off, and the CPU is on the boss list, so it can be a little bit annoying in many places. But that CPU is down.
Yeah,
and Moleboy has our second objective on the board.
In about 11 minutes, we have 2 objectives done on Moleboy's side on the overworld. We kind of really love to see some jet seeds happening. But there's still a lot of seed left and a lot of boss spots still to check.
Yes, indeed. We now have a Paladin Cecil on Kyrios' side. We'll see if this boss is Evil Wall. Not someone we're looking for, but something we're very glad not to see elsewhere.
Yeah, 1,000 hit points of Evil Wall is definitely better than finding Evil Wall on, let's say, this required hook route.
Yeah, absolutely. Evil Wall is very fast, hits very hard, and can ruin your day if it shows up in the wrong spot, especially along hook route in these flank set.
But, you know, Kyrios makes great quick work of that, and Evil Wall is down, and Kyrios will be headed down Ordeals, and we'll find out if he's going to go to one of these overworld treks, or maybe go straight to Eblin to look for some good equipment.
The item from Ordeals, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think was the Adamant Rock.
I believe it was Adamant Rock.
Thank you, Andrew Dave.
On Moleboy's side, we do see Rydia learning Leviathan. That gives me high hope that Rydia is going to be used, especially because we've ditched Palom now at this point. So
that's an interesting move. But Rydia with the Leviathan can make all the difference on a hook route.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, arguably puts out more damage than Quake. Like if you're going to dismiss Quake Kid, you're clearly going to be relying on the Leviathan to do area effect damage. We do see Kyrios landing outside Eblin Castle, doing some prep work on his characters. Looks ready to attempt the trap chests. This is a bit of an interesting play. I know that some runners of these flag sets would prefer, at the very least, to check the shop in Cave Eblin first, because that's considered a gated shop. You can find your tier 5 consumables there, most notably hourglasses, which make finding the trap chest much easier than you would think otherwise. But with the characters and the spells that Kyrios has in hand here, maybe we'll have not very much in the way of difficulty of taking these anyway. Yeah, this is the Lamia Black Cat chest. This is one of the... I mean, there's a total of 3 trap chests here. The particular quirk of this fight is that all of the enemies here, if you don't deal enough damage, will deal counterattacks. The Black Cats use Bluster, which has a 50% chance of paralyzing your character or knocking them out immediately. Which is exactly what we just saw. The guide here, unfortunately, is strong enough to be able to knock out the Black Cats immediately. Does not trigger the counterattack, so the next hit from Edge just ends the fight.
Yeah, so while we don't see Palom get any of that experience, we do see Kyrios kind of save that fight, make sure he gets through it, and clicked through that too fast that I could not even read the text.
Protect ring is what it was.
So a good solid item. Oh, that was 2 monster chests back to back.
Yeah, the Mad Ogre chest. The Mad Ogres are very resistant to magic. You're going to need to rely on physical hits. They also hit fairly hard as well. Notably, we'll see if Kyrios decides he wants to do this, but the drop item and steal item from the Mad Ogres is Bacchus line, which use will preserve your characters immediately. If you're not sure that you're going to be getting them later in the scene, it's and you have an edge in hand here, I might want to consider stealing some wine. I don't see that we're going to be doing that, though.
Yeah, I think at this point we're just trying to get through the fight, and we're using cover strats with Cecil, which is pretty heads up. So if we can get our Palom and our Rosa back up, Cecil will just cover them from the back row, and then they'll still be able to get that experience.
Ooh, Rosa has enough vitality that she's on low HP status as a result of that life potion, so that cover is not going to stick.
Whoops. Gosh, Rosa, why are you so strong and vital? You're ruining my strats, Rosa.
Is this why they call them the power couple?
Oh, man.
But yes, Moleboy is through the evil wall fight on top of Hobbs, ordeals, also has the adamant rock, and soon we'll be making that same decision as to where they want to go next. Meanwhile, we're down to 1 ogre on Kyrios' side. So this fight is stable. Rosa is down again. Hopefully, we'll be back up and stay up for the end of the fight.
We just need one more hit. One more hit. There we go. Yeah. Nope.
Ooh,
2 more hits. 2 more hits.
We'll let Rosa get the... We'll attempt to let Rosa get the kill.
This is what happens when comms doesn't count damage.
It's okay. We're through the fight anyway, and we get a white sphere. So
cool dart. Yeah,
about that lack of Kane in the scene. About that lack of Kane in the party right now. No, well, Kane isn't even in this scene. It does make a very nice dart for Edge, though.
Yes, it does. And we do see Moleboy, who is deciding to join Kyrios on a shiny sword hunt. Unfortunately, it might be not here.
This is interesting. Moleboy is putting the Artemis bow on Cecil as that early source of damage. That's a Murasame on Kyrios' side. Edge is going to be very happy to have that.
Oh, we do have a poison axe, too. That might come in handy if this is not a shiny sword. The skulls and Stalemad. The skulls here are basically filler enemies. This flame cast from Edge is going to wipe them out immediately. If their physical attacks land, they can curse people sometimes. That's rarely seen though. As we're going to see this flame wipe them out. The Stalemad is a little bit more iffy because they are surprisingly fast, and their attacks can inflict sleep on people. Unfortunately, we have Cecil in cover mode right now, so this shouldn't be too much of a threat. They're also weak to ice, so that ice 2 dealing 4-digit damage. So yeah, more than enough power to be able to win this fight. Paladin picks up Virus, that's very useful, and the item is a white shirt. Wow, no shiny sticks today.
I looted my way through Evelyn and all I got was the stupid white shirt.
So good news is, Kyrios does have that pink tail. So there is one more shot at getting a pretty decent sword before headed down the hook route. Yeah,
these are also not even the last trap chests that we're likely to... given that lack of Holy Sword from here, I think there's a fairly good chance that we're going to see one of both of our runners open the few trap chests that are along the hook route in the hopes of, ooh, that's a power shirt. Just sitting randomly in a chest. That's a very good pickup. And a full moon, we know back row Edge.
Yeah, so while we didn't exactly get what we wanted, we got a lot of really high quality loot for this party.
We also We also learned some very important spells on our party members. We've got Virus on Palom. Ideally, you'd want to hit Quake on Palom if you're keeping him around. Not for nothing, he's known as Quake Kid. But we also have Berserk on Rosa now.
Oh, yes. So we are getting ready for our hook route, but we've still got a couple more checks to stop and do before headed down. So maybe we'll get a couple more key items as well.
Yeah, Kyrios is parked outside Baron Inn, which hasn't been checked yet. So that's presumably with this equip where Kyrios is going to be heading next. We also have Fabul outstanding. Although with that hook in hand, I know a lot of runners would prefer to defer the full bowl check for as long as possible in the hopes of picking up that pan, or at the very least with the hook in hand, finding Yang in the underground first to be able to do the Sheila check while you head into the bowl. And we have the Dark Imps as the first Baron Inn boss. This is normally a free fight. This is even more free. So you're a bit sad to find these here.
Yeah.
And that's like Odin as the second boss.
Which is also not required. So.
Well, Edge is in. We've got a Zeus Rage from somewhere. We've got Edge hitting for 4 digits against this boss spot. But the Zeus Rage is the Zeus Rage basically ends the fight by itself.
Oh man.
Is this the key item we need? It is the Baron key. That's very interesting.
Yeah, you know what? Because we're just sitting right here in Baron Inn. It's a vanilla Baron key, of course. So I have a feeling we're just going to route right straight through.
Yeah, like Edge is hitting hard enough here right now that we can easily get through the Baron bosses right now as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and Kyrios heads into the Baron shop, is looking, well, not even the weapon armor shop that the Baron key opens, just the regular shop to sell some things. But I suspect in a few moments Kyrios is just going to head into Baron proper. Those Cure 3s are a nice pickup.
Yeah, what I have found is that when you find Cure 3s, you buy Cure 3s.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even with White Mages in hand, they certainly have their uses, or the one White Mage in hand. Okay, and as expected, Kyrios is now winding his way through the sewers, about to head back up into Baron and start checking the bosses there. Moleboy is still clearing their way through Evelyn right now.
Yes, but we do have a cover Cecil that is very well set up on Moleboy's side, and especially with that Poison Axe, we're going to make very quick effort through this Mad Ogre chest.
Yep. We can see that we've got 3 characters in the near fatal status, and Cecil's just covering them all, taking 1 point of damage on the usual hit. This is classic cover strats right here.
Yes, and that actually made that fight much quicker for Moleboy.
Yes. There's no need to keep reviving Rosa.
Meanwhile, on Kyrios' side, we are going to see what this boss was that went by so fast at the beginning that I don't even remember what it was.
This was Mylon. Regular Mylon.
It was Mylon. See, Grant, you have a much better memory than I do.
I may have just seen this a couple of seconds before it showed up on stream or something. But yes, it's Mylon and Friends, DJ Mylon's electric dance party, if you will. Edge is casting Flame here to wipe out the gas, and then a couple of hits from Edge and Cecil will just end the fight here. Chief Luncher, no comment. Yeah, so it's going to be more interesting here to see who the other bosses in this spot are, because of course Mylon is not one of the required bosses. We are in a position to take the Baron Throne fight, the one that's normally occupied by Kanatsu, but at this moment we also can check the Odin Throne in the basement. There's very minimal chance that a party this early on in the game is going to be able to take those bosses. There are certain bosses that are free enough that you would be able to do that right now, most notably King Queen Evelyn, but possibly some of the guards fights as well. Finding the Kaiko officer in the basement here would be very significant, for example.
Ooh, we're getting a pink tail check, y'all.
And that's Atlion on the Baron Throne.
No, we're not. Just kidding.
So I guess Baron has secretly been moved to the moon or something, but Atlion is one of the bosses we're looking for.
I I mean, listen, if he can't make it to the moon, he may as well, like, rule Baron or something.
Yeah, Baron Castle is Antlion's vacation chateau.
I mean, okay. It is a nice house, and it was abandoned.
Yeah, Moleboy checking the Cave Evelyn shop. So there's a very good... We're going to see... There's a special quirk with the shop where you're guaranteed, I believe, to find at least one, if not two, tier 5 items in this shop. It's mainly for safety of being able to get through the hook route. So we'll see what we've got. Bacchus wines and hourglasses. Those hourglasses would have been very helpful for taking the Evelyn fights.
But you know, I have a feeling that our runners are going to buy a couple of each of those anyway. Yeah. Probably more than a couple wines. We have a long journey ahead. We might need some traveling drinks.
Yeah, well, we've got some heavy hitters in this party, Cecil especially, and Edge, of course, and Yang, once he gets enough levels, will be hitting quite hard as well. So we're going to be loading up on the wine. Kyrios is through the outline fight, has his first objective on the board. It won't be much longer, I think, before Kyrios actually finds the other two bosses on the overworld that we've seen so far. So may have a bit of an advantage if Moleboy does not return to Baron Inn at some point.
Yes, but you know what? We are seeing a very cheeky play from Moleboy. He's decided that Evelyn had enough loot, and he's strong enough to go ahead and take on this hook route and get underground, and that's going to open up a lot of key item checks for him and a lot of different boss hunts. And look at that!
Bahamut, one of the required bosses, right in the middle of that required hook route.
You know, love to see it.
Yeah. So in the meanwhile, Kyrios did get the Legend Sword, the other half of Forge, from Baron, and is in fact going to check the Odin Throne.
Yeah, so we're gonna peek, we're gonna see what's here. Knowledge is power in this game.
That's a sparkle.
Definitely a sparkle, not anything we need. That wyvern can stay there.
The worst of the sparkles.
That wyvern can stay right there.
Okay, Kyrios is now making his way to Mist Cave. He's going to find the Vigan here. So presumably we'll check at least Waterfall after this, and we hope we'll go to Hobbs after that. Moleboy is taking the Mad Ogre's chest, one of the two trap chests along the hook road. Probably still looking for that Holy Sword.
Yeah, and maybe once, I don't remember if Rosa got up to Blink or not, so maybe once that Blink before headed down the hook route just to be safe.
Well, we saw expert use of cover struts early on, so depending on the boss we find in the first spot, might not even be necessary. And with the Star Veils we've got, we don't need to worry a lot about anything else for that Bahamut fight.
That is a good point, and I did forget that one of those chests in Evelyn had a glass hat, so our Cecil is like ready to go with cover struts.
That's a Samurai bow.
Yeah.
We already have an Artemis bow, so that might fall by the wayside entirely.
And you know what feels bad is like we got that Artie bow just like sitting in a chest, and we had to like fight for that Sammy bow.
Is this really the bow you wanted to be guarding over? you
There's
had
so many better options here.
Okay, Kyrios does check Hobbs, does find the CPU on top, and so in just a few moments we'll have 3 bosses on the board to Moleboy's 2. So Moleboy does have a significant lead on going down the hook route, so it could well be that the extra boss this early isn't going to make a significant difference. This is still anyone's game at this point.
Oh, yeah, because with these early checks, with these bosses and these early checks, as long as you check them, doesn't really matter, you know, kind of when you do it, if you do it before headed the hook or right after you come back up from the hook the first time.
Yeah, because you're at the very least, you're very likely to come back to the bowl at some point, having faded that, and with any luck, you have found the pan and have done the pan bog before you come back up to the bowl. That doesn't always pan out. But it's what everyone aspires to, the single dip the bowl. Kyrios checking the waterfall is going to find the Val here and is not going to bother. Moleboy coming up on the King Queen spot. Who's our first boss? It's Ashura.
Okay. I'm definitely not freaking out about this if I find Ashura here. Not too terrible. A little bit punchy, but not something we can't handle.
We have cover Cecil here. This should be fine.
Cover Cecil and Bacchus Wine. Like,
That
I think
too.
we're good. Ooh, but we are seeing a pink tail check on Kyrios'
What's the
side.
pink tail got for us today? I turned in the pink tail and all I got was another stupid white shirt.
But you know what? Now we have 2 white shirts.
Ooh.
So now Cecil can have one too.
Cecil is the best white mage. Okay, so unless Kyrios decides he wants to go to war, which doesn't appear to be happening, we're going to see Kyrios starting down the hook road as well.
Yes, both runners have faded Fabul. And you know what? Without a Tella and without the pan, or like, you know, also kind of looking for that pan, I don't hate that fade in this particular seed.
Yeah. I have one in chat pointing out, Moleboy does currently have edge in the anchor spot right now, meaning that the rest of the party is going to be acting fairly slowly compared to edge here. So we'll generally get fewer actions as a result of that, which is making this fight a little bit more difficult than it probably needs to be. I mean, Edge is still dealing enough damage that we will get there eventually, as we just did. But we might see if Kyrios arranges his party a little bit differently and might make that fight a little bit faster. The boss in the Rubicante spot, which is where Bahamut is sitting right now, is also fairly fast. So this isn't exactly an ideal agility setup.
No, let's hope that Moleboy, because this is Bahamut and you get a little bit of a countdown, let's kind of hope that we get things set up a little bit.
The advantage of this is if you get your Star Veils up in time, which it certainly looks like is going to be happening here, they will last long enough that Bahamut will probably just bounce enough Mega Nukes off of those Veils to just end the fight without needing to do anything else.
That is true. And we've already got some Bacchus up as well.
There's the first Mega Nuke, Yang and Rydia taking the hit. That's unfortunate. And our remaining party members are just going to be dealing some additional physical damage. This could end as soon as the second Mega Nuke, with the amount of damage that Edge is putting out alone.
Yeah,
we might not even get that far.
Yeah, I don't know. That's 2,000 plus a swing. The spot only has 25,000. It's going to be pretty close in terms of whether or not the Mega Nuke kills or whether or not Edge kills.
Yeah. It's going to be close either way. Okay, and here comes the second Mega Nuke. Veils are still up. This is going to end the fight.
Yeah.
And it does. So, Moleboy is through the hook route bosses.
And Moleboy is showing us how to use a fast anchor effectively against these 2 particular bosses. Did very, very well handling that extra speed.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Kyrios is right behind at this point, just coming up on the first boss here, Ashura. Moleboy heads and falls into the same pitfall that many other runners see here.
Man.
Yeah, so one thing I'll point out here if we see it, we're looking for bosses in this seed. So you can see the boss at the top of the lower tower here, which here is Dark Knight Cecil from Moleboy, not one of the bosses we're looking for. But it's good to have that information, and it is something that you can check if you remember to do so on the way down the tower.
Yes, but because that is not a required boss, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see either runner climb up Babel unless absolutely necessary.
Okay, so Moleboy is now underground. One of the things about the underground is that there are very few boss spots here where you want to have Edge in that anchor spot, but you also have a lot of choices for things you can do next. Most notably, there are several shops we can check. There's 2 bosses, and in this flag set, potentially 2 key items that we can find in Dwarf Castle, which appears to be where Moleboy is heading first. But there's other options, such as the Fey March, which has a free key item, as well as 2 bosses sitting in the King and Queen of the Town of Monsters spots, as they refer to in the objectives. And then, of course, there's Self Cave, plenty of loot, and once you have the pan, we'll open up 2 additional key item checks, in addition to the one that you can get just from reaching the end of Self Cave and checking on Yang first.
Yes, and so part of this flag set too is that you have to make sure that you do know warp on one of your characters, and a lot of people fall into the Palom trap of not getting him to level 29 before headed to dwarf. But don't worry, because Moleboy has levels on his Rydia, and Rydia learns it at like level 9 or something.
Yeah. To explain this, the blue flag set has the warp glitch on. So the way the warp glitch functions is after defeating the dwarf bosses, casting warp before you leave the castle again will put you, eventually, if you've moved around the rooms, but if you cast it immediately, it'll immediately put you back in the crystal room, which, due to reasons, is the same crystal room that's in Sealed Cave. With the warp glitch on, that item is still there, and you can pick it up.
Because of course it is, because why not?
Yeah, so this is Dark Elf in the first of the 2 boss spots in Dwarf Castle, not one of the bosses we're looking for.
But meanwhile, we do see on Kyrios' side, he is slow anchored for this Bahamut, so this fight is going to go much slower. So we're going to actually see more actions and more damage done before the first Mega Nuke.
Yeah. We did see Kyrios, with that slow anchor in place, the Ashura fight did go significantly smoother than it did for Moleboy. There's the Mega Nuke keeping only Edge and Cecil up for this. They are... Oh, that Cecil is not putting out very much in the way of damage right now, but Edge certainly is. Okay. Moleboy now halfway through the Dark Elf fight, getting to the point where the elf changes. So the interesting thing about the Dark Elf fight is that the dragon form does not have the boss bit set. And so is vulnerable to a variety of spells, such as Stop, what we're seeing here. Probably more significantly, is also vulnerable to Weak in this form, but we don't have anyone in this party that can cast that. So, depending on your party composition, when you see this form, this fight can go quite fast. Still doesn't have much in the way of hit points. A few swings from Edge ends the fight anyway. So that's Moleboy through the first boss here. We're going to see the other boss in just a moment. Because we don't have earned characters in this flag set, we will not see the character check that you might otherwise see. That's Dr. Lugay in the second boss spot here.
Now, what's interesting over on Kyrios' side is even though that Bahamut is now down, we actually saw Edge's Starveil fall, so it didn't do the 9999 damage, and so only Cecil ended up with XP.
Yep. Better than taking the full wipe there, at least. Yeah, but,
very true.
Yeah, you can see the difference that the anchoring made and how long those Starveils lasted. The faster your party is, it's basically you have some relative advantage in terms of turn economy as to how long your Starveils last. Kyrios does remember to check who the top of tower boss is, and will also now be underground in just a few moments. We'll see if Kyrios makes the same decision to go to Dwarf, or maybe check some of the other shops, or maybe even head down to the Fey March.
Yes, there are so many options that are open once you get underground that it has been very interesting to kind of see what different runners have prioritized depending on their party comps.
Yeah. We have, we do have slightly different party compositions between our 2 runners here. Kyrios is just setting down on this patch of ground near Self Cave. Has 2 sirens in hand, and we're going to see them use, because why else would you land in this exact spot but to bring some eggs out? It's time to cook some eggs.
And we did buy 2 coffins in that Eblin shop, so we are going to see them put to use.
These coffins are from the dwarf shop. The Eblin shop had hourglasses and Bacchus wine.
Oh, that is True.
Yeah, but 2 sirens, 2 coffins. We normally, well, maybe not normally, but once someone has 10 key items, they will get double the experience from this. So there are occasions when you want to take these. Ooh, that's a Bahamut orb from the sealed cave as a result of using the Warp Glitch. We'll be very glad to have that Rydia around.
For sure, because now we've got Bahamut Rydia and a Poison Walk.
Oh no. It's just a longsword for the other key item, but that Bahamut orb might prove to be significant unto itself.
Yeah, I don't think Moleboy is disappointed in that dwarf castle. I believe Kyrios will be disappointed in that dwarf castle.
Yeah, Tomra is one of the gated shops underground. Here, the item shop just had Ashura orbs and Star Veils, which you can probably also get in an overworld shop.
We did get a job dwarf check. It was a rady something.
I was more excited about the items than I was about the job dwarf check.
It was very long.
Ooh, and Kyrios, having found both halves of Forge, is now going to turn them in and see what our Supersmith item of the day is, as well as hopefully check the Forge shop. Moleboy, meanwhile, is heading back above ground, and may not remember where the shop... Oh, it's just heading to the end to get rid of the poisoning. That makes sense.
Yeah, he's decided he's had enough of that poison walk.
Perfectly understandable. That's a Sunrise.
Wow.
The Rising Sun, the best throwing weapon for Edge. So we're quite happy to have that. The Forge shop has life staffs, a nice stat stick. I believe that was Artemis bows, Zeus gauntlets, and I missed what the last item was.
Stardust rod.
Stardust rods.
Yeah, that is, let's call that party out of 10 shop.
Oh yeah, that's we can use all of those, which isn't always the case. Ooh, and Moleboy is back in Mysidia and is picking up Edward, presumably to use as an anchor, because Edward is still face down on the floor of Mysidia.
Yes, this is a very heads up. I think Moleboy decided that his anchoring was a little too quick, and wants to go ahead and make sure that he is properly anchored before going down Fey March and doing some of those underworld bosses as well. Yeah,
because as I was saying, you don't generally want to fast anchor a lot of the spots in the underworld. The underground, because those bosses are significantly faster than the ones you find above ground. So it would make the fights significantly trickier if you tried to bring Edge in the anchor. Probably the only exception to that sometimes is one of the dwarf boss spots.
Yes. Yeah. Dwarf is the only place underground that you really can get away with having a fast anchor.
Yep. And it really that depends on the combination of bosses you're facing, because much of the time you want to have a fast anchor for the first boss spot and a slow anchor for the second boss spot, which is the way it works out. Moleboy is now heading down into the Fey March.
Ooh, looking for the trap chest.
Ooh, and is with that Bahamut orb in hand, or well... Okay, the warriors are getting some actions off here. We haven't taken enough damage to this as a party wipe, fortunately. But the usual approach to taking these trap chests, the ones in... that didn't do very much damage, that fight. You set your battle speed to at least 3. You put someone in the top spot in your party who can cast area effect spell. This is usually Quake, but... Rydia's summons can do this. If Edge is sufficiently leveled, some of his ninjutsu can do this as well. And you just let them cast, and that cast goes off before the warriors get any actions. We do see the wipe there. I wonder if we're going to see another 10th edit. We are, apparently. I'm guessing this is more fishing for holy swords, but we'll see what we get from this.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we're trying to pull a cheeky shiny stick and just kind of get that Cecil where we like Cecil to be. Because I think right now he's still rocking, the poison axe? So it's not exactly the best.
That's a poison axe, all right.
Not exactly the best weapon of choice.
Here comes the Blarg.
Blarg! We love to let Rydia Blarg things.
Let Rydia Blarg things. Okay, that cast gets us through the fight. Let's see if this trap chest is worth anything. The experience itself is going to be very handy, if nothing else. That's a Masamune. Edge is very happy to see that, but we still don't have a Holy Sword for Cecil.
No, but you know, it is a sword anyway.
Yeah, Cecil is missing out on all of the pretty items so far.
Well, he does have a pretty white shirt.
Yeah.
And a Zeus gauntlet, maybe.
Yeah. We can get more of the Zeus gauntlets from the forge if necessary.
Moleboy doesn't have it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Might be a while before that forge gets turned in. Okay, so Moleboy has arrived at the Feymarch. This chest is the Feymarch freebie. It is the Loka key. That's kind of interesting. The only value of the Loka key in this flag set, assuming you've got someone who can cast Warp, as Kyrios is doing with Palom here, when you check Dwarf, is the boss check, because you've already got the key item from having done the Warp glitch. It's a bit out of the way. It doesn't take as long as you would think to actually get down there and see who the boss is, so sometimes making the cheeky Loka cave play is enough to get you another boss and win you the scene.
Yeah, because at some point you have to start deciding which boss spots you're going to check, and which ones you're going to check first. Because at the end of the day, this is a boss hunt.
Speaking of boss hunts, we have Rubicante and Golbez as the two bosses in the Feymarch. Golbez is always a required boss in this flag set. Moleboy is choosing to take the Rubicante first. This is a bit of an interesting choice because I don't think he's healed up. So I'm not quite sure what Moleboy was hoping to accomplish with going into that fight.
I think he was checking because I don't think Moleboy has seen Elements yet.
Yes, that makes perfect sense because Elements was
somewhere overworld.
Somewhere overworld that Moleboy has not checked yet.
Yeah, because he's only done Ordeals.
Oh yeah, Elements was in the Waterfall. We know that Moleboy checked Waterfall.
No,
Elements is not in the Waterfall. Val was in Waterfall. Elements was Baron in 1, and we know that Moleboy has not been to Baron in yet. So here's Golbez, our resident comedian, if you will. You might notice that Moleboy has chosen to apply Piggy status to two of his party members here. This is due to a peculiarity of Golbez's opening move of Hold Gas here. You can see it does not apply to the pigs because the way this works is the pig status is actually higher priority than the paralysis status. So being a pig, being mini, being a frog, all grant you immunity to that. So does being poisoned, actually. So one of the usual techniques for this is to cast Venom immediately to prevent Cold Gas from taking effect. We have two party members up, but most significantly, Piggy Paladin is not paralyzed and can get the Star Veil up, which basically guarantees that we're going to have a relatively smooth ride for the rest of this fight. We still have a lot of health to get through in order to finish this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this spot is like low 30s in HP.
I think the number is 31,000. I'm not 100% sure.
But the good news about this spot is that Golbez will do a lot of damage to himself.
The trick with this is making sure that Golbez takes enough damage before your Star Veils fall off, or at least having enough people survive long enough to be able to hit Golbez after taking that much damage. Yeah, we do see Kyrios is caught up, is now also in the Feymarch taking on Golbez. We can see that the mini status here is granting the same effect. Yeah, that's as Sheep Launcher Chat is pointing out. One of the main reasons that's a concern is even these Lit 3s are only doing about 3,000 damage to Golbez. Because the magic power is sufficient, like it's still more than powerful enough to take out the party members in this state right now. But it doesn't deal enough damage to Golbez, such that the Star Veils falling off actually is a concern. Okay, as we bounce Lit 3s back onto Golbez, and thankfully not Trickers, I do want to take a moment again to shout out Dathis, who rolled this fine example of a seed, Sheep Launcher for pushing the buttons today, and my co-commentator J-Mac, and of course our runners Moleboy and Kyrios for putting on a fantastic show today.
Yes, and thank you to Esgrant for being my co-commentator. I'm having a lot of fun in the booth.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we've seen enough Lit 3s that Moleboy should be getting... We see the attacks coming out now with the hopes that... so Golbez has the script of having... Once Golbez has taken enough damage to put you into about... in the vanilla spot, Golbez has, I think, 13,000 hit points, but after 3,000 of that has been dealt, he says, why? And just ends the fight.
So we do have another objective down, and of course, we can get underground now, y'all.
We can get underground now.
Okay. So at least that was required.
Yeah, Golbez, of course, is one of the universally required objectives in these flag sets.
For sure. We do, just to kind of point out the different strats, we do see a little bit of a difference in the piggy versus the small. Because Moleboy was able to push out a lot more damage with his attacks versus being small on Kyrios' side.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see that difference in speed a little bit there. So that was very heads up on Moleboy to use the piggy strat, specifically in this spot when you're going to actually have to do a lot more damage output to get Golbez down.
Yeah, and we are seeing the veils start to fall off on Kyrios' side. Fortunately, it still has enough actions to be able to pick up some party members and keep the attacks up here.
Meanwhile, looks like we've got Moleboy headed back down to take on this Ruby. Ruby in Ashura spot is definitely not as terrible as seeing Ruby in the Leviathan spot, but because we still have a lot of key items left on the board, I really think this is heads up to try and go ahead and take this spot now and just make sure that it's not your Darkness Crystal.
Yeah, really the way you want to go about these seeds usually, well, the way you want to think of these seeds usually is the key items themselves are important. What is important is having access to all of the boss spots. So you want to ideally be able to open up as many boss spots as possible. Most notably, the Darkness Crystal and all of the, I believe it's a total of 8 bosses that getting the Darkness Crystal opens up. The 5 in the Lunar Subterranean, 1 in Cape Bahamut, and 2 on the Giant of Babel. But even things like the Earth Crystal, which gives you 2 boss checks, are important as well as lesser items such as the package, which gives you a very long single boss check, or the Tower Key, which gives you a little bit of a faster boss check, or even the Twin Harp, which as much time as it takes is still a fan favorite for obvious reasons.
You know, I really do want to see our Darkness at Twin Harp, though.
That would be a nice thing to have. I will point out that with the early paths, you might not even need the Darkness Crystal at all.
This is true. Also, as Chad is pointing out, Earth Crystal technically only has 1 exclusive boss check because you can check Zot 1 without having the Earth Crystal.
Yeah, it's the disadvantage of that is, of course, you need to walk back down the Tower of Zot if you're not planning on taking the second boss spot. So it takes even longer to make that check if you're making it by itself.
This is true, but you know, many a race has been won on the cheeky Zot 1 check.
Yeah, so Kyrios is electing to fade the Rubicante, and instead is checking up on Yang in Self Cave to open up the first of the 2 Sheila checks in Fubul Castle. And now, instead of heading back above ground, is well, okay, it's still heading above ground, but it's putting a save in front of the Tower of Babel, despite not having the tower key. So that indicates that Kyrios might be considering a keyless tower check.
Yeah, because if the Sheila one doesn't, pan out, then really you only have that ruby spot and the keyless tower left to check.
Yeah, another thing here is that Kyrios also has not done the full defense yet, so this will all be 2 key item checks to this vicinity. If even one of them pays off, we will see Kyrios heading back underground eventually, not necessarily immediately, depending on what these items are. Okay, so Kyrios is entering the full defense first. This makes sense because it's probably faster to walk in here instead of heading up to that. And for some reason, Yang is attacking.
Wait a minute, Daphis.
Okay.
This is like messed up vanilla here.
It is real in this sense. So this fight is actually relatively free with Paladin Cecil in hand. Of course, this is a spot where Yang is just going to take enough damage before that becomes relevant. But if you hit... So Yang alternates between punches and kicks for his 2 attacks. In the vanilla version of that fight, there's some dialogue between Yang and Cecil. That's the sad ruby that we get from that. Because earned characters are off, the Sand Ruby does nothing other than sit in your inventory and take up that slot, because if you actually go into Kaipo and check up on that character, it's instead a piggy.
But we did find a sneaky spoon behind that Rubicante. So while it is not our darkness crystal, we do have an Edward in the scene.
Edward is currently napping, but we may...
Spicy!
We may yet see him wake up. Sheila 1 gives us a Dragoon Lance, which is a very nice dart, which Kyrios is apparently electing to keep. Maybe solely on account of having an extra key item from the Sound Ruby check.
Yeah, I think so. I think at this point that extra key item with the hopes of making your grind a little bit faster once you get to 10 key items over just save scumming out.
Yeah, and we do see Kyrios heading back to tower, preparing to make the keyless tower check.
Yeah, because we do know that the Dark Knight Cecil is on top of this tower, and that fight will be quicker than trying to take on that Ruby in the Ashura spot at this point.
Yes, indeed. Dark Knight Cecil, at the top of tower, is not going to deal a gigantic amount of damage. It's certainly not one of the more pleasant spots to find him, but that fight will still be relatively smooth.
Meanwhile, on Moleboy's side, we are seeing this Luca peak, which I definitely don't hate. To go ahead and just make sure that there's not a required boss hiding down here that you have to come back and find later.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, it is relatively quick to just come down here and see who the boss is. If you do want to take the boss, it will take a little bit of time to leave the cave. Fortunately, if you're making this check in this fashion, you probably have a warp caster to make the exit a little bit faster than it would be otherwise. You can't cast exit to get out of the sealed cave for vanilla plot reasons, but you can cast warp, which makes the exit back out a little bit faster.
Yes. So we are going to see Kyrios face this Dark Knight Cecil at the top of the Tower of Babel, and we know that this is actually our progression, because between the 2 runners, we've checked every spot currently available to us, other than the Odin Throne.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to be going back to that Odin Throne anytime soon. Unless... Okay, Moleboy's coming up on the sealed cave boss. Who have we got today? Some time for DKC's speech. That's Ogo Pogo. So we're not coming back here.
Yeah, he can definitely stay right down there.
So that's we've seen Pale Dim, we've seen Ogo, we've seen Wyvern. I don't think we've seen the other 2 sparkles at this point.
Nope, I don't think so. Oh, there's a rat tail.
Yeah, and so that's some form of progression, we hope. We won't know exactly what that is quite yet.
I mean, do we hope, though? Or do we hope that somehow our progression, our real progression, is hiding behind that Wyvern on Odin? Is that mean of me? I think that's a little mean.
maybe a little bit. You can always hope instead that the rat tail gives us the harp or something along those lines. I think we'd all love to see that. Okay, Moleboy is now also in the ball, having spent a bit of time after Ruby setting up that Sheila 1 check, is going to be getting these items as well. I wonder if Moleboy will intend to keep either of those items. The Dragoon Spear is a very nice dart, if nothing else. And we're also... I mean, Moleboy is a little bit short on key items right now, but we can see that Kyrios is at, let's see, 9 key items right now. With any luck, the Rat Tail will give us 10 in the event that we want to do some more grinding. I was starting to explain earlier on when we saw Kyrios take those eggs that once you hit 10 key items, the amount of experience you get from most fights doubles as a way to sort of to boost the end game. This is a setting which is enabled by default. It can be turned off if you really want to, but it's very helpful in accelerating the later stages of a seed. So most of the time, if you see people intending to do large grinds, they will wait until they get 10 key items to do so. Does the rat tail turn in? And it's just an hourglass. Oh no.
Daphis, you've rolled us a great one.
Oh no. This is going to get spicy. I wonder if where Kyrios is going to go from here. Maybe intent on taking that Wyvern because it is landing back at Baron right now. We do have sufficient star veils to be able to get through this fight with enough of an anchoring setup. I suspect that we might see, yeah, there it is. Kyrios turns his battle speed all the way down to 6, often known as Wyvern Standard Time. Wyvern's opening attack is Mega Nuke. It will completely wipe out your party in most spots that Wyvern can appear in. You want enough time to be able to get a Star Veil or 2 or 3 off before that hits so that you can actually survive and continue the fight. So setting your battle speed down is enough. Is a way of ensuring that you have enough time to enter in those actions before Wyvern 6 go through. Alright, here we go. Will this go? Ooh, an actual wall cast instead of using the Star Veil.
Do not worry, chat. That was just a fire alarm from dinner, not a carbon monoxide alarm. It does that on occasion because it gets too hot in my kitchen.
Yeah, Kyrios has enough time to get a wall cast and a single Star Veil off, so we have 2 party members up for the remainder of this fight. Hallam in a position to quake, Edge in a position to just hit things. The way the rest of this script works is Wyvern's next action will be to put a wall on itself, and then it will subsequently bounce nukes off of itself to hit your party members, even through the reflex that you've got going up. Edge is hitting hard enough here. You can see more than 4,000 damage that Wyvern's not even going to get the chance to do that. And we're through, and we get the Darkness Crystal.
Well,
I blame you for this, J-Mac.
Actually, I think it was Dipwood that suggested that like 40 minutes ago. Just gonna toss the blame over that way.
So significantly, that gets Kyrios access to the Moon and the Giant and those 8 boss spots, but that is also Kyrios' 10th key item.
Yeah, so we're about to see what Kyrios is going to do about these grinds, because I'm pretty sure we still have not seen any sirens in this scene.
Yeah, I can see a few possible options here. The thing that I think I would hope for under the circumstances is the one gated shop that we have not seen the contents of yet, and in terms of consumables at least, is the one in the Hemingway Cave on the Moon. We can hope that sirens are there. Failing that, Edge can steal sirens if we have some patience, or we do... there are some cases in which the black mages that you've got now would be able to get up to weak on their own, but we're missing a Tella, we're missing a Fu, so the usual D-Machine grind is probably not on the books unless we've already got enough levels that we don't need it. But there are some other options for grinds that we could take on the Moon. Wandering around can find as Warlocks, for example. You could do the reaction grind if you're really brave, although I think if characters are probably past the point where that's particularly useful.
There's always my favorite behemoth grind.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. We've got the party composition to be able to get away with that.
But it does look like Kyrios is going to the moon.
To the moon or something. Okay, Kyrios is stepping back into Mysidia for a moment, probably looking for something. Ether ones, that's interesting.
What are we gonna do with all these ether wads, I wonder? Are we doing mech giants?
Well, okay, we're heading up to the moon first. Mech giants are a possibility, I suppose.
Are we gonna get some mech giant grinds and blue moon seeds?
That would be fascinating, I have to admit. But I'm going to guess Kyrios is going to head to the shop first to check for sirens. That's exactly what we're seeing. Yeah, with enough ethers, you don't need cabins. But
that is true. That is very true.
No sirens.
No sirens. Gotta love that. Sirens.
Okay, Kyrios gets back on the whale. Is heading somewhere else on the moon before we do anything else. Probably, yeah, that's cave value. We're going to see a peek at the bottom, at the very least peeking the boss. We'll see if anything else happens. Meanwhile, Moleboy
there are behemoths down here.
Yeah, Moleboy, in the meanwhile, is slowly working his way through Barren Castle, having finally exhausted all of their other options. Finds the antlion. We'll be happy to see that. We'll probably be finding that wyvern shortly as well, and we'll subsequently also be able to head up to the moon.
If he decides to take it, because Moleboy still has faded antlion at this point.
That's true.
And there's still the top of tower. So seeing that wyvern, we hope that he goes ahead and takes it because he can. Just so he doesn't have to double back. But a lot of people are going to nope out of that wyvern too. So it'll be interesting to see. That's
a turtle in cave value. Not one of the required bosses. There is, as surprised as I am to be saying this, there are worse things you could find in that spot.
Yeah, that is definitely true. However, I'm not going to fight a turtle unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah, you don't want to take that fight unless necessary. Worst things you can find there include Evil Wall, Ogopogo, both of whom we've seen already. Any hard-hitting physical boss, because the Bahamut spot in cave value is I believe is tied for the highest physical attack power in the game.
Because of course it is.
Because Bahamut doesn't actually use physical attacks. You need to set that number to something, so why not set it to the maximum possible value? Okay, Kyrios, having wisely decided not to take that turtle, is electing to do a top-down check of the moon, checking the Murasame altar first, which is the fastest to access. Okay, Moleboy has the Legend Sword in hand, has 4 to the ready should he choose to take it. Looks like he is heading back into Barren Castle to find that wyvern. That's a Leviathan at the Murasame altar. Not the worst fight that could show up here. And looks like Kyrios is looking to take this. Okay. Nope. Immediately as I start saying that, resets out of the fight.
Of course. But this does beg the question. It makes this very interesting because we are still missing 1, 2, 3, 4 items with bosses attached to them. So at some point, if our 2 bosses are not exactly up here, we're going to have to start killing some bosses to find those extra key items.
Yep. My own view of this is that this is a little too early to be going into pure face check mode, but it's like you certainly can. It's just much riskier to start doing that now, or than to wait until you've got a couple more of those checks in hand, key items in hand.
Yeah. It is interesting to see if Kyrios will take any bosses. I expect if he finds something, well, obviously like a King, Queen, Eblin, that he'll go ahead and take that. Yeah, but it does look like Moleboy has noped out of that wyvern. He will be very disappointed to realize that he will have to go back there in a few minutes.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a forge before anything else happens with that Legend Sword in hand. Ooh. Yes? No? Heading to Tamura for some reason, which we'll see in a few moments. Probably picking up Star Veils.
Ah, yes. Some Star Veils. We might go ahead and see a Forge Shop check while we're down here.
I hope so. That Rising Sun would be a welcome addition to the team. Okay, Kyrios approaching the bottom of the moon. I expect we'll probably head towards the lower 3 altars first, just due to boss density. You do have the choice here of going up to the Crystal Sword altar first, but that takes longer. We do see Kyrios heading towards the 3 bottom altars.
Yes. I think our first check is the ribbon room because, like Chad is pointing out, we still do need a grind of some sort, and the ribbon room is 200,000 experience.
Yeah, if you got the 10 key items, it's 200,000 experience in most cases. Some bosses will split the experience between it and not give you the full 10. 200,000. So hopefully we'll see one of the bosses here that will let us get away with that. Ooh, that was a free fight, and that's also one of our required objectives. You love to see it.
Yeah, and you love to life glitch this too.
Resets out because you missed the life glitch.
Yeah, that's what happens when you miss menu. And I can honestly say I do that a lot.
Yeah, I do that on occasion as well. I wouldn't necessarily reset over it, but I suppose it's fast enough with this fight specifically that you can get away with it.
Well, and with the amount of experience that you get just from life glitching the officer, it is definitely worth the reset.
Yeah, so of course the way this fight normally works is as long as the officer is alive and will order the soldiers to attack, it will continue to attack. If you defeat the officer first, the soldiers will just attack each other, as you're seeing now, and in the confusion because who's ordering us around or something. If you kill the soldiers first, the officer will retreat, and especially in this spot, you don't want to miss out on the experience of the officer retreating.
Yeah, because he takes a majority of the experience with him.
Yeah. Okay, and then a few quakes and hits later, Kyrios is through this fight. Will get us a hefty chunk of experience, almost 300,000 experience thanks to that well-placed life glitch. And we'll be getting 2 key items as well as an objective from this check. Kyrios now has 6.
Oh, there's the sword.
Ah, an Excal. Finally, Cecil has the sword worthy of him.
So good news is we will have a sword for Zeruma's fight.
Yep. And finally let Cecil hit things properly. Cecil gets the power shield as a result and gets a Zeus Gauntlet as a result. And that sweet 192 attack power on Cecil. So yeah, if we find another boss down here at the bottom of the moon, Kyrios is pretty well set for the end game.
Yeah, at this point we've got enough levels to do some pretty decent damage with hybrid strats.
We see Moleboy now also making the keyless tower check here in lieu of some of the other possible options. That's Magus Sisters at the White Spirit Altar on Kyrios' side, not one of the bosses we're looking for. Resets out of that is probably in face check mode at this point.
Yes, I would definitely say so with only one boss left to check, and we still have 2 up on the moon and 2 on the giant.
So
however, we're gonna have to start killing some bosses if we don't find what we're looking for.
Yeah, so if neither of these pans out, if neither of these bosses are one of the bosses we're looking for, what would you do at that point? The demon is here.
Well, I guess we're gonna start killing some bosses now.
Apparently, this is going to hurt in both directions.
Yeah, we do have that Excal, which is going to deal a great ton of damage to these D-Lunars, but these flames and viruses are gonna hurt really bad.
Oh yeah, well, we're already in viruses. These viruses are going to outright kill whoever they hit.
These don't just tickle.
Goodbye, Cecil.
They knock you out.
This is probably a lost cause at this point.
Meanwhile, we do see Moleboy having gone back to go ahead and clear out that keyless tower. I think that's a pretty heads-up play because at this point, everything in the underground has been checked. So unfortunately, this is not going to lead to anything. So we will probably see. Oh no, the rat tail. He has to walk that out. I do forget that. Which we know this chain doesn't matter, and that will direct him back towards that that wyvern down in Odin Throne.
Yeah, okay. Kyrios is most of the way to the Crystal Sword. All through at this point, we're going to hope that this is one of the last bosses that we're looking for, so that we don't have to, say, go to the Giant or anything, or start killing some of these ugly, ugly bosses. In order to find the last key items, we need to open up the last checks we've got. Okay, so he says Octomammoth. Yeah, I mean, there's worse things you can find. This has relatively low health for the moon bosses, and will actually slow down quite rapidly as we get hits in, especially if those Bacchus lines go off. So this is a relatively safe fight to take at this point.
Yeah, and this will give us hopefully access to something with progression. Because otherwise, yeah, Kyrios is going to have the choice of, do you go to Giant to face check those bosses, or do you start killing the bosses on the moon?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Personally, I would be inclined to take some of the bosses that we've seen on the moon before I hit anywhere else. I would be reluctant to leave and need to come back later to find more of those key items. But it could well be that one of the bosses we're looking for is in one of those two Giant spots. Okay, that's a Crystal Helm from...
Nice hat.
Okay, Kyrios, what do you do now? Do you leave the moon, do you go to the Giant, or do you start taking some of the other bosses? You save, and you're going to exit out, and you're going to check the Giant first. And if that doesn't turn up anything, you're going to scum back here and start taking the bosses you faded.
Yes.
This is a solid play.
Oh, well, we're going back
to the blue planet.
But yeah, at this point, there are no wrong choices. Because we are in face check mode, and there are a lot of gated key item spots or key items that we still need to find, but also we only need one boss. So
Tracker Sheep Launcher is pointing out that this might be a check of Zot 1, because that's significantly faster than trying to get to the Giant. That, in fact, is what we seem to be seeing here. As was pointed out in chat much earlier, you don't need the Earth Crystal to make this first check.
This is super spicy. I'm here for this kind of spice.
Ooh, this is a very interesting play. It takes about a minute and a half. I don't remember the exact time duration to get up to the top of the tower from here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Moleboy, I think it's about a minute and a half, but it's definitely quicker than the package check.
Yeah, Moleboy is now taking that wyvern at battle speed 4. We'll see if we've... Okay, Edge gets a Star Veil off, so we've got at least the one. We've got exactly one Star Veil off here. This is doable, but it's pretty sketchy at this point.
A little dicey, yeah.
Like, we might end up playing Life Potion Roulette here at the way this fight is going. There's the wall. These nukes are going to start coming out right away. Ooh, yep. This is probably not salvageable. Yeah, Moleboy resets out. We'll probably take another attempt at it right away, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume dropping the battle speed down to 6, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, so that's just the Baron Guards in the Zot 1 spot, not who we're looking for.
And the spice of the seed continues.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, that's right. Kyrios did not check the Luca boss, so before heading to the Giant, he is going to exhaust all of the possible boss checks on Earth without having those extra 4 key items.
Yeah, Kyrios, of course, has not fought the Rubicante in Fameworks yet either, so you might see a...
Oh.
I think it's more likely that Kyrios will check the outstanding boss spots, mainly the Giant, before deciding to take that. But we'll see. Okay, here comes Moleboy's second attempt at Wyvern. With Edge as fast as he is, him getting the first turn here is sort of detrimental. You know, may still get 2-star Veils off here. This is, I believe, battle speed 6 at this point. You can see it by how fast the actions are going. Does have enough time to get 3-star Veils off at battle speed 6 here.
Yeah, so that'll definitely make this fight much smoother for Moleboy.
Yeah. So yeah, this will be a much smoother fight. We're going to see the Zerks. Oh, we're going to get the spoon throw. That's a worthy costume I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I'd say so. Because ultimately, if this, well, I mean, it has to lead to something. But if it didn't, you know, you'd get it right back.
Yeah, like if you throw the spoon, you hope that this is your progression, and if it's not for some reason, I mean, at this point, I think Moleboy knows that this is progression. Has checked absolutely everywhere else. So we'll get the Darkness Crystal in a moment. There we go. Kyrios is now headed up to the Giant as well. Having seen that Ogo in Sealed Cave and wisely choosing to leave Ogo down there. Okay, the Giants of Babel. There are 2 boss spots here. One of them corresponds to the Elements fight in Vanilla. For most bosses that can show up in this spot, it has 65,000 health, the most health of any boss spot in the game. So depending on who shows up here, this fight can be quite the slog. It is also the fastest boss spot in the game. So some of the fights that can turn up here are quite tricky. Unfortunately, we've seen most of the things that the audience would love to see here. We've seen Wyvern, we've seen Kenatsu, we've seen Valvalis. We have not seen Demas yet, which is one of the possibilities of something particularly ugly that can show up here.
Ooh, 65k of Demas.
Well, so hits the safe point. We'll see in about 10 seconds who this first boss is. Survey says... Ooh, that's spicy. This is the Alt Gauntlet, the Fabul Gauntlet. That is the other boss that's required in all versions of this flag set. So this isn't 65,000. This instead is a set of 5 regular encounters from this area, all of which are particularly powerful. Kyrios does have the levels and the power to be able to get through these fights, but it's still going to take a little bit of time. But this is, as Sheep Launcher is pointing out, this is the grind. This is also go mode for Kyrios.
That is very true. And we do hope... I think Kyrios bought a couple of hourglasses.
I think so, too. Whether or not Kyrios still has all of the hourglasses.
But we are about to get a spicy race because Moleboy is also headed straight to the Giant.
This is getting good. So Kyrios, this is Kyrios' 7th boss. Moleboy has not been up to the moon to see the officer fight yet, so still only has 5 bosses. The gauntlet will make 6. So Kyrios is probably going to lead immediately upon completing this fight, unless I suppose there's the possibility that Kyrios will still peek the 2nd boss in case it's also something free, just to get the extra 200,000 experience from taking that fight. Moleboy, still looking for that extra boss, is going to be taking that fight no matter what.
And as Chad is pointing out, the Giant could be the dirty double.
And if that happens,
then we have a race, my friends.
We will have quite the race if we have exactly Calbrina in the CPU spot. Okay, this is Kyrios' 3rd fight in the gauntlet. There will be 2 more to go after this. J-Mac, I guess we're seeing the Mac Giant grind after all.
Hey!
In a sense.
I mean, we still have that axe, so
yeah, I mean,
it's going to come in handy.
We have the Mac Giants, we have the grinding. Here's the spicy fight. The single D machine. D Machines, of course, are most famous for the fight involving the Siren and two Beamers, which will summon additional D Machines. D Machines are vulnerable to Weak. We don't have anyone here that can cast Weak at the moment, so these fires are going to come on and wreck our day. They are vulnerable to Stop, but it doesn't seem like Kyrios either has the hourglasses or is willing to use them for this fight.
Yeah, this one pesky little dragon can ruin your day.
I mean, some people get used to just thinking of D Machines as, you know, they can only cast fire. They can't really harm us in any way. But outside of the D Machine grind, they're quite a threat. Alright, but Kyrios gets through that fight and is now in the last fight of the Salt Gauntlet. With the two map giants.
So while we are double grinding on both screens, I do just want to shout out our Restream team again. Thank you to Daphis for holding down the fort on the Restream side and for rolling us this fantastic seed that's getting very spicy by the minute. And also a big shout out and thank you to Sheep Launcher, who has been pushing all the buttons and keeping track of everything that has been happening in this seed. And of course, Escrunt, my fine co-commentator. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and of course, JMac also deserves the shout out for being an especially wonderful co-commentator along this wild journey.
But we do see Kyrios getting his crystal. We will, I guess, see if he's going to warp out of the giant or head up and fight out. I don't know at this point which one is a little bit faster.
Kyrios is just electing to walk out, it looks like. If you know exactly where you're going, the warp glitch, casting warp here probably only saved you a couple of seconds at most. It's still something I would consider doing, just because on account of many sealed cave checks, I've gotten very good at setting up warp caster exiting areas like this, but even that takes a little bit of time to set up properly.
Yeah. Plus, it just feels like an extra long walk out when you're leaving the giant like that.
Okay, here is out of the giant, is taking the, I'm going to call it the swag whale, directly up to Troya. With the pass in hand, the former dancers area in the basement of the Troya pub is instead a shortcut to Zemus. So we're starting to see some flags coming in chat, JMac. Is it nap time, or what could these possibly mean?
Oh, well, I already had my nap today, so I don't know why everybody's throwing some Z's.
Maybe they're telling me to go to sleep.
Probably.
But yes, so this is a randomizer. As we've all seen so far, the bosses in Free Enterprise are placed in random locations compared to where they are most of the time. Maybe a little bit less so if Daphis is rolling the seed, but still. We can't really move Zemus from his home deep at the bottom of the moon because this fight is it's too unique, if you will, to really warrant making players suffer through at any other point during the game. But we still want to randomize Zemus somehow, so instead, these days, we now have more than 570 possible occurrences for Zemus that will occur at the end of the seed, which leads us to a particular question that we ask whenever someone gets to this point. And JMac, would you like to ask that question tonight?
I think that question is something about a hat. Oh no, wait a second. It's whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
For the purpose of this tournament, I'd also put it as, in the name of the blue moon, who are we punishing tonight?
Oh yeah, that's the second question. The third question is it cute? And the fourth is, does it in fact have a hat?
And I will add on to that, is the hat cute? Does the hat have a hat?
Yes, infinite amount of questions here in Free Enterprise.
Does it have an instrument? Can it play the piano?
Ooh.
Can it play the harp, I suppose?
Do we have Z sprites that can play the piano?
That's a very good question.
What?
Ooh.
Homer, you're taking up the entire screen.
I think we can safely say that it does not have a hat at the very least.
But to answer Berserk Now's question, yes, I do believe Homer has paid taxes.
Okay, so with this particular party composition, especially with Cecil having that Excel in hand, with Edge having that Rising Sun, and Masamune in hand, we're mainly going to see Berserker strats for this fight. Some interesting characteristics that we're going to see here. We see a slow cast come up from Rosa. This is going to provoke a counter nuke which hits Rydia, which, as much as I hate to say this with J-Mac in the booth with me, is probably the ideal target at this point.
I mean, if you're using Rydia as an anchor, yes, you probably want the nuke to just go ahead and hit your anchor.
Yeah, so...
That's all I will say.
So the purpose of that, in addition, of course, to slowing Zeromus down, is Zeromus has... Well, Zeromus' main attack is Big Bang, of course. So it's mainly relevant for later casts of Big Bang in the fight, but Zeromus will tend to set the spell power of Big Bang a turn before it actually casts Big Bang. In the case of the very first Big Bang of the fight, it just uses Zeromus' default magic power. The counter nuke actually overrides that spell power. So the slow is going to cause this Big Bang to deal only about 800 damage to everyone, maybe even less than that. So if you cast a spell on Zeromus that provokes that counter nuke this early in the fight, you actually nerf the damage of the Big Bang. For the opening Big Bang, it's easy. You just cast it anytime between the start of the fight and when it comes out. For later instances of it, you need to time that spell between when Zeromus sets that spell power and when the Big Bang goes off. So you have a time window of 1 turn to do that.
Meanwhile, on Moleboy's side, we do see that the Giant was a very, very free fight. So Moleboy ended up with a lot of experience.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Water Hag is not one of the many bosses that we've got on the docket today, so I think we're going to see Moleboy head up to the moon, probably face check looking for that one last boss. We'll find the officers soon. We'll probably very soon as well be joining that the Zeromus fight. Okay, we do see some spells coming up from Helen and Rosa here, so this is more of a hybrid fight than it is a... Ooh, that's it. That's it. The fight's over. Kyrios has defeated Zeromus in legendarily short time.
Yeah, get your GGs out in chat for Kyrios.
Yeah, final race time of 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 56 seconds. GGs.
Thank you.
Yes, and we're, as you're now hearing, we are now also joined by our winner tonight, Kyrios. I've already said GGs, but GGs again.
Wow, that was a very, very quick Z fight.
I mean, once you've gone through Gauntlet at the element spot, you've got all the power, right?
Yeah, that is very true.
So, the first thing that's on my mind with this is you did find some... we see you took Rydia to the end of the seed acting as an anchor, despite finding some very high-powered summon orbs early on in the seed. Did the thought ever cross your mind, especially with, say, Edward in hand, of actually using some of those spells on Rydia, or were you committed to the anchor from the very beginning?
So if Edward, like that 9-speed versus the 8-speed, right? If there had been a Sid or a Plum or something, I probably would have leveled her up because the Leviathan was right away, and that's a lot of power. But I mean, I feel like you're going to get Palom to Quake by the time you're going through Hook Root most of the time. There's a decent chance you'll have a Holy Sword on Cecil. Edge had some good weapons right away. Like I didn't think it was going to make that much of a difference, and to just not have to worry about my anchoring the whole seed was nice.
Yeah, it did. Well, if you'd known you would be getting that X-Cal as late as you did, would you have made the same decision?
I think so, because of the power on the edge. Like the Leviathan, it helps, but it doesn't speed you up that much a lot of the time. It's really good if that's the power you need to clear something, but if you've already got the power, like the Blarg is a different thing, right? So that out of Luca after the warp glitch, if that had come early, that changes the picture a little. But I mean, the tools were there to beat everything.
That is very true. So kind of just walk us through your early game play and just kind of how you were feeling as you kept finding all of these pretty great characters.
Yeah, it's nice to have the powerful party, especially when you don't find the Holy Sword, so at least you've got the other options. I mean, that's pretty much my dream party for a Blue Moon Seed. Sometimes you want to maybe run a little Berserker heavy, but having that Palom option gives you just so many tools to address any different situation. It was nice to get the Baron Key there and just kind of do that in flow. I mean, my biggest worry, honestly, was that back half of the seed when you're missing 4 items that lock bosses. And that puts a pretty good odds that you're going to need one of them. And I waffled a little on some of the moon fights, but I'm just glad that I found that last objective where I did.
Yeah, how strongly were you considering taking some of those ugly fights on the moon in the hopes of finding some of those additional key items?
Yep, so I was going to take anything that was fast. Kenatsu at Bahamut, not fast. Mega Sisters there, not fast. Leviathan, when I'm still on Battle Speed 6 from the Wyvern fight, not fast.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was like, I mean, Leviathan's not that bad.
You're sitting there, you're seeing the turn stick by Battle Speed 6 and thinking, no, I can't do this like this.
I hit the Bacchus, and I'm waiting, and I'm like, okay, this is clearly what's wrong.
Oh, man. Well, I just have to say I'm very impressed with your efficiency in full clearing. Because you pretty much did everything that you had access to up until the moon bosses. So, yeah, how did you feel when you realized that Wyvern was gating your progression?
I would almost rather it have been the Ruby, because I could have done the Wyvern the first time I was down there if I'd really wanted to, right? Like, it was faster when I did, but probably not on net, and I would have had Darkness that much earlier. So that's something to worry a little about, but I mean, at least I didn't have to take the Ruby fight.
That is true. And yeah.
Yeah, but you would have gotten a lovely spoon from taking that fight. Wouldn't that have been useful for something? You have no way of knowing that, of course, but still.
I'm so sorry that he did that and got a spoon.
Okay, so with this win, your match next week is going to be up against one of Vitasia or Poidrak. Do you have any thoughts on that upcoming match?
I mean, they are both extremely strong runners. I've seen some Vitasia live racing, and he's always been pretty good. I've been in asyncs with Poidrak all week, and he's been coming in right around my times or a little faster, so definitely a challenge ahead no matter who wins that.
Yeah, that's perfectly understandable. J-Mac, do you have any more questions for Kyrios today?
No, I think we covered all of my questions. Kyrios, do you have any final thoughts on the seed before we let you go tonight?
No, I mean, it was, in the end, pretty straightforward, because you didn't have to go back to the moon and hunt for everything, but if someone took all the moon fights the first time through, I don't think that's a wrong decision either, so however it goes, it was an interesting seed, and glad to take away with the win. Thanks to Escrant and JMac, thank you both for commentating, and thanks for Dathis and Sheep behind the scenes.
Yes, and thank you for putting on a fabulous show for us today. Have a good evening.
Absolutely, GG's.
Thanks again.
Okay, Moleboy is now up on the moon, having peaked Cape Value, having peaked that Murasame altar, electing not to take the Leviathan. Is in full face check mode at this point, most likely. Will probably head down to the bottom of the moon as well immediately. It will not be long before Moleboy finds that officer fight. Might even head into the ribbon room first for that extra experience and find that fight immediately.
Yeah, especially because what looks like happened is when he went to go check Antlion, he forgot to save. So I think he lost his water hag experience.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, I would imagine that he's going to go straight to the ribbon room and find that fight there. So he should be headed into a Z fight pretty shortly.
Now, of course, Moleboy does have a slightly different party composition than Kyrios does. Whether or not that makes a significant difference for the purpose of the Zemus fight remains to be seen, because it's we do have that Rydia. If we're lucky, we'll have enough damage to be able to put up some nukes for support. We do have that Rosa, possibly being able to put up whites for support as well. But it's mostly going to be Cecil and Edge doing the work, I think.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I mean, for real, the difference in party is we had a Palom in one and Iridia in the other.
Yeah, that's ultimately what it boils down to. Unless we want Edward to suddenly start hitting things at this point, but we don't have the spoon anymore. So
no, we threw the spoon. I was gonna say, you know, if he still had the spoon, I wouldn't put it past Moleboy to go ahead and equip it for the Z fight. But what we are doing is using hourglasses, coffins, and life glitches. Or nope, just coffins. We're just headed through this fight, which is fine because we have enough HP to be able to...
Edward hits himself for 2 damage. That's not going to cut it.
Edward. Silly Edward.
Instead, we let Rydia bonk Edward. So now with our anchor down, Edge gets that straight hit on Cecil. Fortunately, does not get the kill, and we'll just bring out 2 more coffins to end the fight. Get us our only 200,000 experience because Moleboy did not life glitch the officer. But that's still enough to get Rosa up to white.
And he will be very happy that he will get a sword if he decides to check these 2 chests, which I assume he will. Because he still is rocking that poison axe, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there we go.
There it is. So it really wouldn't put it past him to just go ahead and swag walk down to Z at this point, even though we do have the pass.
Okay, so it's we're going to see a save, and I think that's indicative that we're going to see the walk down to Zemus directly from here. Not exactly a...
Oh.
What's this? Is Moleboy perhaps thinking about taking the...
Oh, okay.
Oh, of course. This is... Moleboy has those sirens, is walking up a couple of levels, being able to take a couple of additional Gold Dragon fights to grind up for Zemus. Probably hoping to get Rydia a little bit more survivable here. And or getting Rydia to the point where she can cast Nuke as well.
Pink puffs for Moleboy? I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna see pink puffs today.
I'd love to see pink puffs, but I have a sense that we're not going to be seeing them.
But look at that edge. That edge is just doing so much damage.
Yeah, the power of the rising sun. Yeah, so I think Moleboy will probably use at least 1 more of these sirens because Rydia just learned Fatal. This next fight might get us to the point where Rydia learns Nuke. If not this one, then certainly the next siren will.
Dathus, are you spoiling things for us? Dathus, who can see the future.
Oh, no. That's not what I'm spoiling. By the way, hi, chat can hear me. I'm not spoiling that. I'm just saying that when Sheep Launcher and I go and do our race on Saturday, by the way, there will be puffs. I have already laid claim. I'm getting an adamant armor. I'm shutting down the tournament.
Oh!
You heard it here first, chat.
We have all bared witness.
We've all heard it now.
Oh, we did get Nuke up on Rydia on Moleboy's side.
Alright, yeah, that's the end of the grind, so that's the most likely reason to get that grind. So we're going to see a save here, and then I think we're going to see the straight walk down to Zemus.
Oh, nope, just a save.
Well, yes, we're going to see the save, and then we're going to see the walk down immediately afterwards.
Oh.
It's been a bit of an interesting point as to, do you spend the time, if you're at the bottom of the moon anyway, and you have the pass in hand, to leave the moon and go to Troya and turn in the pass instead of walking down the moon here. And the way that I see it personally is, how confident are you that you can win this fight on the first encounter? If you're extremely confident, you might consider the actual swag walk and not save on the way down. If you're relatively confident, you can save and then just walk down. If you're less confident, you probably want to take the marginal amount of extra time that it might take to go back to Troya, just so that you don't have to spend time on subsequent attempts, if necessary, walking all the way back down.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've been seeing a lot of people approach it. I don't see as many like low-level strats in Blue Moon. So for a majority of people, if they're finding their last boss down at the bottom of the moon, even if they have the pass, like they're just walking. There's no reason to go because by that point you have power overwhelming on these flags.
Yeah, like we're at a point where, I mean, we've got Rydia casting, we've got Rosa casting white, we've got Cecil and Edge hitting things with some of their best weapons. You're often, especially in the Blue Moon flags with T Wildish, and the high likelihood of Cecil, assuming he turns up getting those holy swords, just being able to hit things like that. Like, this isn't a party composition that's going to turn up in Red Moon, for example. You only get one of Cecil or Edge, or in rare cases, Fusoya. Here, we've got both Cecil and Edge hitting things. So it makes much more sense just to, you know, get people up to the levels where they can deal meaningful damage on their own and not rely on the low-level strats.
Why did I already forget what the Z sprite was? And then God, the Z sprites that are so, like, huge, they just, like, bombard me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we see the Bacchus line coming up. We're starting to see the spells come out of it. We see a direct cast of Nuke from Rydia here. So this is going to provoke a counter nuke and set off that nerf of the initial Big Bang as well. We hope that this hits Edward. It does.
Hey! That's 2 for 2 on great targeting by Zeromus. Good job, Zeromus.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 other characters here would have been able to survive that counter nuke no matter what. The worst case would have been that it hits Rydia here. Because Rydia does not quite have enough health to be able to survive most damage rolls for that counter nuke. Tier 4 comes out on Rosa. Rydia starts casting nukes and reflecting them.
Yep, I have a feeling that we're pushing enough damage that we shouldn't even see a second Big Bang question mark.
Yeah, like we're dealing something like especially with those nukes, it's like 20,000 damage per round. This fight is not going to last very long.
No, this fight too will be just as quick as Kyrios.
Yeah. The power of Rising Sun, Edge, and Excal Cecil, and Rydia throwing out those high-powered nukes as well.
We love seeing Rydia nuke things.
Rydia nuke things. We're sad that we didn't get to see more Rydia blarging things, although the one time was probably enough to...
Yeah, I mean, look, Blarg did what Blarg needed to do.
Yeah. I just threw that one trap piss. Just a couple more hits at this point should get us through this fight. More hits, a couple more nukes. 9,000 damage. You'd love to see it.
Let's go, Rydia. Let's go.
There it is. The flash to the correct boom. Moleboy has also finished this seed. GG's to Moleboy. It's the final time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 35 seconds. Let's see if we can get Moleboy in for an interview as well. And with that dignity, we are also now joined by Moleboy. GG's.
Yeah, something like that, except for the part where I reset multiple times back into
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I got flustered, and then it just kind of repeated itself. But guess judging on the times, I don't think it actually mattered.
No. He was already in Z by the time I think you did that first flub on the save there. But you still recovered very nicely, even in spite of you getting flustered. You still continued to clear the seed the way that you know that you needed to. So GG's for that.
Nope, and like any good Dathis seed, it definitely had its share of jokes.
Right? So how about finding darkness behind that wyvern?
You know, if I had found the Baron key from Baron Inn a little bit earlier, I think my soul would have been more prepared.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have taken the Rubicante in Feymarch if I'd already got known about Darkness Crystal, though I probably would have last location that Wyvern, much like I didn't take the Antlion. I'm curious, what was the pink tail?
It was another white shirt.
Okay, I was wondering if it was a Holy Sword, which would have boosted Cecil much more quickly.
The one Holy Sword that we saw between the both of you was the same one that you found in the Ribbon Room.
That makes sense. I mean, it means that luckily we got the Sunrise, so there was a way to just lean on Edge much longer, but...
So, walk us through your early game decision-making and your routing. After you went through Evelyn, you decided you had enough power. You just were like, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I had I think a Mura and a Ninja Sword on Edge. Getting underground, starting to check the underground shops, things like that made a lot more sense. At least peeking that boss there after the Evelyn. You don't have a Crystal Sword, so that means things could be a little bit more interesting, but you had the white shirt and you had multiple blast hats, so getting cover strat set up for Cecil was relatively easy, and then seeing that it was Bahamut, you have all the Star Veil, so that's just a call at that point of who do you decide is going to, which of those people do you want to save and get experience? And I didn't save Riddy at that point because I had honestly planned to trade her out for Edward until the Bahamut showed up.
The truth comes out.
Well, I mean, because I was figuring on a triple Zerker party, and then it's the Bahamut, and then Rubicante just laughed at me attempting to cast Bahamut about 4 times, and that was good times.
Well, it did go off a couple of times when it mattered.
Yes. Yeah, on the route of that Bahamut, and especially the Ashura immediately before it, you took Edge as an anchor into those 2 fights. Did the thought occur to you that you might want to have a different anchor for that fight? Or what was the reasoning behind that specifically?
So I knew I was going to fast anchor it, which isn't great. But at the same time, I had enough power to pretty much punch through most of what could be there.
Yeah.
And definitely knowing, okay, I'm going to get through this, figure out what I get, because if that happened with two key item checks, one of them could have been the pan, in which case I would have bumped Yang before going up and trading out for my anchor. But I certainly didn't want to do or even attempt any of the Feymarch bosses with a fast anchor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And speaking of that Feymarch, you and Kyrios actually were taking on that Golbez at the same time. But what was really interesting is that you were doing the piggy strats and Kyrios was doing the tiny strats. And we actually got to see that in this case, with your Edge being your primary damage dealer, your fight went much faster because he was able to still do full swings.
Yeah, the piggy strat, the downside, I guess, is that you can't Zerk, which I forgot about and ate 2 Bacchus wines that I didn't need to. But otherwise, mostly I was just worrying that the Star Veil was going to wear off on Cecil before I could finish that one. But having Cecil piggied and then, he and only one of he and Edge eating the demolishes meant that was pretty safe because he'd get the Star Veil off before any of the spells came out.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And luckily enough, the Star Veils did not wear off before our comedian went away.
Which was the exact same thing I was doing on Bahamut when he was queuing up the second Mega Nuke, is double checking to make sure the walls were still up so that I didn't need to re-Star Veil Rosa.
Yeah, one of the good reasons to have a fast anchor, that's why, for sure.
So even though you have lost this evening, that does not mean that you are out of the Blue Moon tournament. It just means you are headed to the waning bracket, where it looks like your next opponent will be the loser of the Pojak Vitasia race. So how do you feel about your match next week?
In the parlance of free enterprise, it's going to be wild and or interesting.
That is very specific for free enterprise.
I'm sure at the very least it'll be wildish, if not pro. I think.
I see what you did there. Yeah, no, I mean, both Poidrak and Vitasia are extremely good, so I don't feel like I played this one particularly bad, but I'm going to have to basically spike things a lot better and just, have a little bit of luck on my side with the rando to hopefully get through on the winning side.
Well, overall, even though, times might not reflect, you still ran a heck of a race, and it was very entertaining to watch. And I hope that, that you're still proud of how you ran tonight.
Oh, no, I think aside from the stupid resets, I ran relatively tight, so...
Yeah, and that cannot be the best of us. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with us before we send you off for the evening?
Just the usual. Thank you both for commentary, and Dathis for rolling this wonder of a seed. It was very wild. And Sheep Launcher for pushing the buttons.
Well, I hope you have a great night, Moleboy. GG's. Get some rest after this hard race, and we will see you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Well, that brings us to the end of this broadcast, where you're certainly not done with Free Enterprise for the day. In just a few moments, we're going to be sending you over to the main Free Enterprise channel, or Free Enterprise Prime, if you want to call it that, where the race between BD and Discovery and Starman, also in the blue relaxing bracket, is just about to start up.
Yeah, so we're going to head that way. Please remember that we are not going to spoil the outcome of this race, because a lot of people are going to want to come back and watch this VOD, and there have been many, many races tonight to choose from. But we will be back tomorrow as well with a whole night of programming on all 3 channels. So, and for now, I hope you enjoy this race, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, have a wonderful evening, viewers.
You're going down, Dathis.
I will turn this stream around, young man.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
You know what happens to vanilla? It gets spilled on the floor. Yeah, that was a fun one.